Welcome to Suicide Undone. I'm very pleased to introduce Irene Otero Fernandez, who's a life coach who has herself been through some dark times and has managed to triumph from her depression. Irene, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. And I'd like you to start off by introducing yourself. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Thank you so much, Linda. I'm honored to be a guest in this amazing podcast that you have so generously started. I think it's an amazing initiative because I know what it is like to be in the rock bottom, and I know how important it is to have a support network and to share knowledge, and how just sometimes just hearing some strangers' words can change the course of our whole life. So there is always hope, and we are here to help each other. And it was for that purpose that I became a coach. I'm also a therapist. My background is in psychotherapy, yoga. I also combine nutrition, shamanism, different types of spiritual traditions of the world. And since my area of practice would be holistic psychology, holistic meaning that I take a very integrative approach in terms of body, mind, soul, or spirit, but that goes beyond religion, right? I believe every religion has some truth to it, and eventually we all have a spiritual side to us. We all want to know why we're here, what's our purpose, where we came from, where we're going. We all want to feel part of something bigger than us. We all want to feel that we belong. And when we don't, as many people feel nowadays in our modern society, that I believe is spiritually starved, when we don't feel we belong, when we don't see a bigger purpose, when we don't see meaning in our lives, then things can get dark. We can feel demotivated, and that builds up day after day after day, and it can lead us to mental health issues, to also physical health issues. I myself struggled with depression at different points of my life. I had burnout twice. I used to have panic attacks, anxiety, and that's basically why I became a therapist in the first place. I studied to heal myself, to help myself, and then I found the techniques that I learned so useful that I started sharing them with others, basically.
That is so wonderful that you're able to impart that to other people. Now, you said hitting rock bottom allowed you to see everything that wasn't working in your life, and that it's not an easy process, but it's necessary to have an honest look at yourself and the role that you might be playing in your own suffering. You said the only way out is through, and there are countless blessings hidden in every challenge. So can you expand on that a little bit?
Definitely. That's how I currently see life. That's not how I've always seen life and life's challenges, right? I come, I would say, from a normal family background. There was some issues in my family, not too many. I had some childhood trauma, not too much. I had a relatively easy life, but I also grew up in an environment where people were not talking about things like emotional intelligence or spirituality, or my relatives, my friends, people in my environment weren't going to therapy. People really didn't talk much about mental health and things like positive thinking or spirituality, or these things. And just a disclaimer here as well. Since we are in a podcast that's helping with suicide prevention, when I was 5 years old, my father committed suicide. So in my family, there was mental health issues, there was, this kind of problem, but nobody was talking about it openly. So I grew up knowing that something was going on, but nobody really said what.
And that could be so
And
confusing for a child to have such a major life issue and no one's talking about it to explain it. There's this concept of debriefing when a tragedy happens with anybody, that this is really necessary to help with the processing of emotions. So you had none of that, right, after the suicide?
I didn't, but it was because nobody knew how to provide that for me in my environment. So I believe everybody is always doing the best they can, and that includes my family back then. So if my family didn't manage to speak about these things to me when I was a child, it was because they themselves were shocked, were in denial. They weren't able to process their own emotions. So that goes back to what I was saying, that I grew up in an environment where people didn't speak about emotional intelligence or therapy. My family members that underwent the loss of their child, like my grandparents, my mother, my father's siblings, I don't think anybody went to therapy, or maybe just a couple of people. So just because this wasn't something that was normalized or that people were even aware of at the time, right? I believe now things are getting better. There's more awareness about mental health. But yeah, we're still working on that.
And you had said that emotions need expression. And to the extent that the emotions are not expressed, that creates blockages. I think I have this image of a hairball in a drain.
Yes,
Get stuck.
exactly.
And I think parents are in such an important role when it comes to that, to begin to instill that knowledge very early on and to help kids with how to manage their emotions. One of the best books that I ever read in parenting is called Parent Effectiveness Training. And it was written by Thomas Gordon. So basically, it helps parents to help the child identify what feelings and arrive at compromises. And I think that applies to all of us, right? In life, we absolutely have to make compromises every step of the way. We can't always get what we want when we want it. And so what we're talking about is really creating that win-win situation so that everyone walks away happy. And I can't emphasize this enough in human relationships. So a lot of people find themselves in a lose-win dynamic, right? They're constantly sacrificing, constantly repressing their own feelings and trying to make other people happy. This is sort of like the doormat lifestyle, right? It's that self-denial. And I think that there is a certain degree where that, volunteer work is a very generous thing. But what I'm talking about here is something that is almost like a lifestyle of constantly ignoring one's own feelings for the sake of other people. And that can be from childhood trauma.
Yes.
On the other hand, you have the dynamic of the win-lose. And this is where a lot of parents get into trouble, that they are denying the child's feelings or their needs. And this is more like an authoritarian style. So can't emphasize enough how important it is. Healthy emotional expression, you said, is key to our health and well-being at every stage in life, not just in adulthood.
Definitely.
And I think you had also said that our educational system focuses mainly on the IQ aspect, right?
Yes.
Not enough emphasis is given to the emotional intelligence. So at what point did you begin to gain an awareness of this and incorporate that into your own life?
Right. So these things, as you were saying, they're a lifestyle. They're a life skill. Emotional intelligence is a life skill that's easiest to learn when we're children. But if we didn't have the chance to learn that as children, we can learn that at any point in life, as I did as an adult. And I learned it the hard way. So since I was a child, right, and there was this incident with my father, and nobody in the family really talked about it, and I grew up repressing it in the sense that I never wanted to speak about my father. I would avoid the topic, and I never went to therapy about it until I turned 25. And at that point in my life, I had finished my studies. I had studied law, by the way. I only became a therapist later on, thanks to these life's challenges. But anyway, I was 25. I had finished my degree. I was working at a law firm, and it was a very demanding job that I didn't find meaning in, and I feel very stressed in. And I also had a relationship at the time where my partner also didn't understand me or my needs, and there wasn't very good communication there. And now I can be thankful for those situations because they allowed me to hit that rock bottom. I attempted suicide when I was 25 because I didn't see a way out. My personal life was a disaster. My relationship felt horrible. I was crying every day after work. I didn't enjoy my career. I felt trapped in my life. And now I can see that I was reproducing somewhat my father's patterns, but
So interesting.
only, with time and perspective, and after studying and reflecting. When you're in the middle of the situation, you just feel trapped and horrible and like there's no way out. But then if you keep going, you can find some meaning in what you went through.
You helped to break the cycle, right? And who knows how many generations this went back.
Well,
There's always the question in the fields of psychology, psychiatry, is it the genes or is it the environment? Or is it a combination of both?
both.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's really funny how it works because I thought I was fine. I was always a very joyful, cheerful person. But those aspects of our psyche that are related to trauma, that are related to the shadow, everything we've repressed because it was too painful to face, can go really deep under the surface. And someone who looks like he or she is perfectly fine, that person can be having a very hard time inside. They can be harboring a lot of pain. And that was my case until, it just became unbearable. I attempted suicide. I ended up in hospital. And then I was told I needed to go to therapy. And I was still resisting therapy because I thought I was fine. It was just a one-time incident. And now I can laugh about it. But again, at the time, it just, nothing made sense really. And what helped me the most at that time was to find a therapist that had, for me, it was about a compassionate approach, right? That's always important. A therapist that I felt a personal connection with.
Absolutely. That's so important to
Uh-huh.
have that connection. Without that connection, it's very limited. So what was that process like? How long did it take you to find the right therapist?
I was pretty lucky because at the time I was living in Italy and I went back to Spain, where I'm originally from, to stay at my mother's house. And I just asked a friend for a recommendation, and she recommended this therapist, and I went, and she was amazing. And what I loved about it is that I went into sessions with her and I could cry and let go of the old emotions and the old resentment, and she would provide that safe space. But she would also give me some homework, so to say, some lifestyle recommendations that were research-based, science-based, and also some self-questioning exercises, self-inquiry, some things for me to reflect on. It was not only about seeing the therapist and, her helping me, but it was also about her empowering me to see that I could heal myself through my own actions and through changing my thought patterns as well.
That is the key. And so did you incorporate meditation into your recovery work?
That took me a while, actually. At the time, I was 25. And I just wanted to become healthy again as soon as possible so that I could enjoy life again, because I felt that I was too young, to just be ill at home. So I cut it short. I did cut it short. As soon as I felt better, I stopped seeing the therapist and I was stable already. And I devoted a few months to travel. Travel also helped me immensely. But of course, that meant that I stopped digging in my underlying issues, because depression, anxiety, burnout, I like to see them more as symptoms rather than the disease. They're symptoms of some thought patterns that we have because we pick them up from a family member, like it was my case, or from society, or from our genes. It doesn't really matter where they came from. The fact is that we have negative thought patterns, obsessive thought patterns, psychotic thought patterns. There are many ways we could label them, but it's just thought patterns that don't serve us. And since we are thinking all day long, our minds, they only stop when we go to sleep, sort of, because they change their functioning to go into dreaming and deep sleep instead. But during the day, our internal dialogue is going on and on and on. So if we don't take care of that, it can easily spiral and get out of hand. So that was my case. And only a few years later, when I was 27, 28, and I started having issues in my life again, with anxiety again, with depression again, I started feeling the heat. And but by that time, I could recognize the early manifestation of the symptoms, because I had already been through that. And so by that time, I would go to therapy earlier on. And then I started meditation and yoga as well when I was 28.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the role of the medication. At what point did that come in, and to what extent did that help?
Well, it helped immensely. It did help immensely. However, if someone is in an acutely depressive state or suicidal state or psychotic state, I wouldn't recommend meditation. I think meditation is not a short-term fix. Meditation is something you do when you already feel stable.
No, I totally agree. I was asking you about medication, not meditation.
Medication, sorry.
It's okay.
So I never took medication.
Okay. So all this was, your recovery came completely by therapy and by other choices, other holistic approaches.
Yes. And that's why today I'm a holistic therapist, because I totally believe in the power of lifestyle choices, of thoughts adjustments, of emotional release to heal ourselves. I think medication can be useful in some acute cases, but I also think nowadays it tends to be prescribed more than what would be needed. And I know some
it's a quick fix, right? Where the real work comes in the therapy, the whole lifestyle change, the whole thought process change.
Exactly.
those lasting effects.
Exactly. It can be helpful for that, for an acute phase, for a very difficult to deal with episode. But still, there are so many things that you can do whose efficacy has been proven by research is nearly equal to that of medication in terms of depression and anxiety, right? And that includes exercise, cold therapy. When I was going to therapy, for instance, I was recommended to go to the sauna, and that was really helpful. Nowadays, cold therapy is widely recommended too, and that in combination with sauna, with exercise, also having a look at your nutrition and having some health checks done, some blood work done, because you may be lacking nutrients that could be critical in regulating your nervous system or helping your nervous system stay balanced and regulated.
So it really is seeing the person in totality, right? The human beings. You can't just choose one aspect and treat one aspect of it. You have to see the whole package and take care of the whole package. And this is why I stress again and again how important self-care is, in all of its manifestations. Now, there was a time you said that you thought that travel was going to be the fix, right? And you described this digital nomadic lifestyle, which you engaged in for 2 years. So tell us a little bit about that and your realization that that is not what brought you happiness ultimately.
Yes. So, part of the reason, or one of the reasons why I attempted suicide when I was 25 was the fact that one dream of mine had always been to travel, to work and travel, to have a job that would allow me to travel the world, because I've always loved traveling so much. And when I got a job that was not aiding me to achieve that, it felt really crushing inside. It contributed to my depression. So as soon as I was free of that job, I started traveling again. Then I went into an academic job that would allow me more freedom to travel. And once I finished that, for the past couple of years, I've been traveling as a digital nomad, working as an online therapist. And that was the dream come true for me. But this reminds me of something. I don't know if you are familiar with Jim Carrey's story and how he's also been through depression. I just love to watch his
Well,
interviews.
that sounds fascinating. Please tell us about it.
So Jim Carrey, he's quite a character, right? He's a very talented person, but a bit crazy as well. And there's a couple of sentences that he said about his life that I find ring so true for my life as well. The first is that when you are depressed, it's just your soul telling you that it's tired of the life that you've created or you've allowed yourself or settled for here on earth. So taking this spiritual point of view is your soul saying, no, stop, like this is not the way for you. That's what depression is. It's an alarm bell, right? An alarm signal saying this is not the life you're supposed to be living. And that was definitely my case. And then I changed my life to achieve what I wanted. But then also something that Jim Carrey says is that when you achieve what you want, you realize that's not what's going to make you happy.
It's complex.
It is. It is. But on the way to achieving what you want, you normally have to go through challenges, through fear, get out of your comfort zone, learn new skills. And so when you get to what you want, you realize, yeah, that's nice, but the real satisfaction comes from within, not from external achievements. So when I finally had that free life, that I could travel anywhere I wanted to, that I could work from anywhere in the world, I started feeling a bit lost and a bit anxious and like not knowing what to do and like, okay, this is nice, but that's the human condition. We want something so badly, we get it, and then we're like, is this really it? I want something else.
So what helped you ultimately in finding that homeostasis?
Yes. Then that's where meditation and yoga and spirituality really helped, because so we all want things. And again, that's part of the human condition. We will keep wanting things for our whole life. And that's normal. When we feel hungry, we want food. When we get tired, we want to have some rest. When we see a nice piece of whatever object, we want to purchase it. And that provides us some instant gratification. And even at the neurochemical level, it's been proven that instant gratification, that is the gratification of our human desires, is not what provides happiness in the long run, but instead delayed gratification. That means setting bigger life goals for you so that every time you achieve one, you have another one, and goals that are not set in terms of achieving like external things, but like having a purpose for your life, feeling that you're serving a bigger goal, that you are doing work that is meaningful to you, that you are part of a community that's meaningful to you. And again, that goes back for me to spirituality, which ultimately, in my opinion, is about feeling the connection heart to heart with other people, feeling the connection to the community, feeling that you have a reason to be here.
Yeah, that is so important. So many people feel alone and they're lacking that sense of community. Mm-hmm. So it's so important to realize and make connections and make your own unique contribution to the world. I just wanted to, there is a psychology professor by the name of Sam Vaknin, and he talked about 4 pillars of happiness. So the first pillar is the self-knowledge, and I think that therapy could certainly help a person to achieve that. After the self-knowledge comes this phase of self-acceptance. That's accepting the package, even the imperfections. And I think so many people have this perfectionistic desire or tendency, and nothing in life is perfect, right? So really self-acceptance is saying, I am good enough. I'm never going to be perfect, but no one is ever perfect. And then the third pillar, he talks about self-trust, right? Who's going to have your back if it's not yourself? And so having your back is listening to those cues within. If you're unhappy, it's there for a reason. It's a symptom, as you said. And then the fourth pillar, which I think is very interesting, he called it self-efficacy. And that's just knowing that you're effective in the world, right? If I want to go out and conquer a particular skill or task, right? Every single thing that we have ever set out to do up until the present, we've accomplished it, right? We've gotten through school, we've worked, we've developed relationships. So it's that goal setting. But I think in that goal setting, where the key is knowing what your goals are and what it is that you actually want out of life, which a lot of people are lost with that for one reason or another.
Definitely.
But I think getting back to what we were talking about before is if they were raised with that emotional intelligence, right, they would have been from an early age been able to sense what their feelings are and go in the direction of their dreams. But a lot of times their direction is the direction they go in is someone else's expectation. And that is the essence of self-betrayal. Self-betrayal is going against what is good for your soul.
Yes, I fully agree. And the thing there is that if you didn't learn emotional intelligence as a child, then you're not attuned to your own emotions. And as you were saying, your emotions are your compass to guide you to what feels right. So when something doesn't feel right, it means you should not go there. You should change your route, correct your course. And when something feels right, it's for you to enjoy that life experience. And we're human, we're social animals as human. So we need each other. We need to feel that we're making that difference, as you say. And when we feel that we don't have that, of course, going to therapy, learning emotional intelligence, learning to release your emotions, to express your emotions, learning emotional attunement and nervous system regulation is really helpful. But as a short-term fix, a quick fix, something that really helps as well is to go help somebody else. To connect with other people that also are suffering, because as you were saying, so many people feel lonely in their suffering, and that was definitely the case for me so many times in my life. And sometimes I still struggle with that. Whenever I feel down, my tendency is to self-isolate. And that's something that many people do. And it can make you feel worse and worse and worse when if you can go and talk to someone about what you're feeling, or even just go for a walk in nature, or go help somebody else if you feel that you don't want to speak, or you need human contact, but you don't have anybody to talk about this, just smiling to a stranger, having a small social interaction can make such a big difference in that moment.
That is so true. Stress, everyone says it, is so bad for physical body, and that's because of cortisol. And one of the things that I learned fairly recently is that there's actually technology to measure the level of cortisol in a human body. But I wonder, smiling and laughing, that also dumps the good chemicals into our bodies.
Yeah.
And that could probably also be measurable, right?
Yeah.
So avoiding stress, I think, is really super important. And even before, it's important to be aware of when the stress and what the triggers are. And ultimately, we do have control, right, of what we do in our life, whether it's, it could be a toxic work environment, a toxic relationship, anything. But we can limit that. And that is part of the self-care that is so important to practice.
Definitely. And it's about small incremental changes, because so many times we also feel that we're overwhelmed because all of a sudden we find ourselves in this unbearable life situation and we don't even know how we got there. That was definitely my case. And then you don't know also how to untangle that, how to tackle that, because it feels like so much. And that's when having a support network, looking for help, talking to, whoever can help you, just getting out of isolation, breaking your silence, speaking out, asking for help, and doing something different, even if it's just a tiny little thing, is gonna get you out of the rut, out of the, bad situation, and slowly, step by step, you improve. You keep improving every day.
People think it's simplistic when I say life is all about tweaking, but it's true, isn't it? And, on Facebook, there are so many suicide prevention pages. And so a lot of times people will post situations in their life that have them so overwhelmed, and they're unable to recognize how to untangle it, right? But just because they don't realize how to do it doesn't make it impossible.
Definitely.
And this is why, in my opinion, suicide is just so wrong, because it's fixable. And this is the message I hope to get out there, is you don't take that plunge at that moment in time, right? That there's always ways to fix any given situation.
Yeah, I fully agree. But I also find it's important not to make suicide wrong, because I can tell you, I Googled countless times how to kill myself. I had many different plans to kill myself since I was a teenager, actually. And I wasn't talking to anybody about this. I wasn't even, thinking that I would necessarily do it, but I liked to have it as a backup plan in the back of my mind, that if everything goes wrong, I can always kill myself. So
that
now
became a way of coping with stress, right?
Yes. And I also would think, maybe not kill myself, but fake my death, for me. Yeah. And now I can see that something I probably picked up from, my father, genetically or in the environment, doesn't really matter, because children are really receptive. They're like sponges, feeling and sometimes even intuiting what adults are thinking without adults saying anything. But anyway, so if I had people in my environment that were openly speaking about suicide, I could have maybe researched it, laugh it off, normalize it. For me, it's really important to be able to normalize, to be able to speak out the fact that you have suicidal thoughts. The fact that you have suicidal thoughts doesn't mean that you have to commit suicide. I think if we can be able to reframe how we see suicidal thoughts, not as a threat, but as an alarm sign, again, that we need to go to therapy. We need to talk to someone because we're not feeling right. But there's nothing wrong as such with having suicidal thoughts. I think it's a normal human reaction not to want to be alive when your life doesn't feel nice. And then you can do something about it, which is not killing yourself, which is changing your life so that you can enjoy it. There's always a way to change your life to make it more enjoyable. I guarantee you that.
There's so many different ways. Yeah, I guess that's part of the self-acceptance, right? We're a total package, and we can't deny any aspect of ourselves. If that's how we feel, it's okay not to deny it, right? But just maybe to keep going with the hope that eventually there will be a way out of it. And today, are you grateful that you didn't commit suicide?
Yes, definitely. I'm really happy. Of course, my life isn't perfect. There are days when I still feel I don't really want to do life. But I know that even if that day is not the best day ever, there's always something to look forward to. And for me, the conscious practice of gratitude, and that's where training your mind really kicks in and really makes a huge difference, because nobody taught me that. I had to cultivate that positive mindset as an adult. So emotional intelligence and positive mindset are, I think, the two most useful life skills to navigate mental health challenges. So every day I consciously take time, it can be just a few minutes, to make a small list of things that I'm grateful for. And it can be super simple. It can be the sun in the sky. It can be a cup of water, it can be a hot shower, it can be my cell phone, it can be I don't know, a street cat.
You're so
Anything.
right about that. This reminds me of a conversation I had one time, and it was with an inmate in jail, and he was having a really tough time that day. And he's telling me how miserable he was. And my words to him were, it could always be worse. When I said those words, he was so offended. And he said to me, what could be worse than this? I said, okay, what can I say, right? I'm not in this position. The following week, I met with him, and he came and he said to me, you were so right. I said, well, what convinced you, right? Because you look like you were about to smack me before. He said, well, I was in the day room and the TV was on, and there were images of the Holocaust, and your words came back to me. It could always be worse. So I 100% agree with the importance of practicing gratitude, or even keeping a gratitude journal, and appreciating life. Life can be so beautiful. And it's really what we focus on, right? But there's ugly pieces of life every day, right? You just turn on the news, it's getting uglier and uglier. But there's also so much beauty, and there's so many good-hearted people out there. So it's really what we give our attention to that is gonna, it's a law of attraction, isn't it?
Exactly. The power of our awareness, where we focus our attention, is what creates our reality. Because if we're not looking at something, we're not even realizing it's there. So we always have the power to withdraw our attention from what we don't like and focus on what we like, so that we can feel some relief. And when we're in such a horrible situation that sometimes life takes us through, like going to jail can be pretty tough for a variety of reasons. Some of them more obvious than others. But anyway, I also know people. There are famous cases, right? Like I don't know, Nelson Mandela, who went to jail and made the most of that. And also taking into account the Holocaust, there are uplifting examples even there. I don't know if you've heard of Viktor Frankl.
Yeah, absolutely. My favorite book,
Yeah.
Man's Search for Meaning. And he said the last of the human freedoms is one's ability to choose one's attitude at any given time. And that's what we're talking about here today, right? What is the attitude? Is it one of gratitude, or is it one of total defeat? And I think people are better than that. I've seen so many examples from jail I've come across people who are so depressed, they won't even get up to use the toilet. I mean, we're talking about the depths of depression. And they get to rock bottom, and then they go up. And sometimes they soar. So I've seen that in the human spirit is really capable of amazing things.
Yeah, definitely. I fully agree. And what you're sharing is so inspiring, because you work there directly. But in my personal experience, for instance, battling my own suicidal thoughts, and then working with people who were suicidal, and with people who were psychotic and had different types of mental issues, we can all do better. We all can. We all have that power. And I say more, it's unavoidable that at some point in the future, if we keep going, we feel better. And it's normal that in the process, we also feel split inside, because maybe a part of you is miserable and sorry for yourself, and a part of you wants to, keep going and look for reasons to be alive. And that's also normal and human and acceptable to have that inner split, that inner division. It's okay not to want to, because sometimes, as you were saying, people get to a point where they don't even have the strength to get out of bed to go to toilet. I've been there too. And in those days, even getting up to go to the toilet is an accomplishment that you can celebrate yourself for and be grateful to yourself for your own inner strength to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. We talk about the protective factors, and for some people, it's children, right? That the need to nurture their children, or maybe it's a special connection they might have with a parent, or it could be any number of things. But just where there is suicide, often there is an ambivalence about doing it, and it's a question of just pulling out the healthy piece of the dynamic and reminding the suicidal person of what their protective factors are.
Exactly. And so many times, when you feel so, that goes back to what I was saying about suicide being a taboo and that being problematic, because so many people, they think about committing suicide. They don't really want to kill themselves. What they want is relief for their pain, right? And they think that the only relief they can get is in ending their life because it seems unbearable. But when we speak to someone in the very act of having that authentic human interaction, in the very act of telling them about our struggles, we're already getting relief. So for anybody that may be struggling with this or knows anybody that's struggling with this, with depression or suicidal thoughts, reach out, because having that one conversation, even a short, simple conversation, can change everything. For instance, before my father committed suicide, he called his parents' house. Sorry. There was a plane passing over my house. I live next to the airport. So my father called, and some people do that last try to reach out to someone. And it was just unfortunate that his call wasn't properly answered, in the sense that, like somebody replied, but they didn't have time. And of course, then this person regretted it. But you never know. So also, for your family and friends, your loved ones, it's good to really ask. Maybe you're not the one struggling, but someone who may be. So also ask people how they're doing, and try to have some time to have quality conversations with people in your environment, because that could save lives as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so important to have a network of support, not just one person.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So what things bring you joy today?
Oh, so nature brings me a lot of joy, even in the days when I have whatever types of issues in my life. Nature is always there, and it's always a source of joy for me. The beauty of, I don't know, I live by the beach. I really enjoy the sea. So going for a walk on the beach, even when it's raining, just listening to the sound of the rain, those small things that I came to appreciate more thanks to my meditative practice. I do daily yoga and meditation. That's really helpful as well. My work now gives meaning to my life. I find great pleasure in helping other people that go through similar things that I've been through. And so, yeah, finding meaning in your work as well. It doesn't have to be like finding your life's purpose all of a sudden, if you're in a bad situation or in a difficult situation. It took me a while to get to where I am today, but I would say that this kind of work, that inner work, always pays off, and there's always hope. and there's always light at the end of the tunnel.
That's the best investment a person can make, right? Is in
Yes.
their emotional and psychological well-being.
Yes,
Well,
fully agree.
Irene, I cannot thank you enough. This was a fabulous, really very insightful conversation. I appreciate it so much, so much.
Thank you so much.
I want to remind the audience that if you are suicidal, there is always help available, suicide hotline 988. And I want to also let you know that there's wonderful things planned for this channel. So I really hope that you would subscribe and stay tuned. So on that note, thank you.
Thank you so much, Linda. It's been a pleasure. I've learned so much from you too. And yes, people, if you're struggling, please reach out, ask your loved ones how they're doing, and just spread the love, because I believe that's what we are here for. And there's always so much love and so much help and so many good reasons to be alive.
I so agree. It's all about love. On that note, thank you.
Thank you.